Hello and welcome to the weekly voice chats. This is the Men's Humans Rights Discord server, really a semi-official server of the Men's Rights subreddit. Today's topic, big news: Johnny Depp has won his defamation case against Amber Heard. And I think, and many people think, this story is much bigger than just Johnny Depp. This is, in my opinion, a watershed moment for the men's movement and for male victims of domestic violence. Because for the first time, a lot of people are beginning to realize that men can be victims too, and that feminism is not perfect and it's not everything that it says to be. Johnny Depp, of course, is the victim. Amber Heard, of course, is the abuser, and feminists are defending the abuser. They are defending Amber Heard. And why? And the scary thing is, feminists want to craft laws on gender domestic violence. This really kind of shows their intent. If they're willing to defend an abuser, then what kind of laws would they craft? What would a feminist inspired domestic violence law look like coming from this people who are defending someone who admitted to physically striking Johnny Depp? There were pictures and videos of his severed finger, which he had to go to hospital for. And yet we're seeing a lot of these mainstream, I have to say, not to be political, mostly left wing sources who are continuing to defend Amber Heard or kind of taking this ambiguous position in the middle where they're saying, oh, she's an imperfect victim, is the new word that they're using. They can't call her an abuser, so they can't quite call her a victim either. They can't bring themselves to do it. So they know they can't call her a victim because she's guilty, but they can't bring themselves to call her an abuser. So instead, they've invented this new buzzword, an imperfect victim, and they're trying to make it sound like, oh, misogyny is the reason why people are criticizing Amber Heard. No, misogyny is not the reason why people are criticizing a domestic abuser. Being a domestic abuser is why people are criticizing a domestic abuser. And that is exactly what Amber Heard is. And I am just so happy to see that Johnny Depp has not only won the court case, which is, obviously important and good for him, but for me, the real case, the real important battle to win was the court of public opinion. And in that sense, he did. And that is why I think a lot of people are beginning to wake up to feminism. They're seeing how feminists are defending Amber Heard, and they're seeing how these media outlets are defending Amber Heard. And I'm seeing a lot of Twitter comments from people saying, wait a minute, I can't believe you're saying this. Seriously? Like, why are you And they're kind of like waking up to the fact that a lot of feminists are straight up misandristic and sexist, and honestly, some of them are straight up psychopathic and straight up evil. A lot of MRAs sometimes say that I'm, too soft on feminists and I'm not hard enough. So, okay, to those people, yes, there are some straight up psychopathic, evil feminists who would 100% be fine with the legalization of domestic violence against men. So that's kind of my take on this. I'm very glad that Johnny Depp won, but I'm even more glad that the public believes him. Because if I had to choose, and I think Johnny would probably choose the same thing, between either winning the court case but the public not believing him, or losing the court case but the public believing him, more important is the public believing him, I think. Good thing he won both. But I do think that this story is, yes, I want to make it about male victims, and I'm happy that male victims are now feeling empowered to come out and speak up and be recognized. But we cannot ignore the fact that feminists are continuing defends a known abuser just because of her gender. And that's really scary when you think that these are the same feminists who are advocating to craft gendered domestic abuse bills. Thank God for Philip Davies, MP in the UK, who resisted the domestic abuse bill feminists tried to push in the UK in 2020. God only knows how bad that would have been. So I'm not speculating that I think feminists would support domestic violence against men. I have proof now. We have proof now because we're not guessing that they would defend Amber Heard. We're seeing that they're defending Amber Heard, even after the testimony of her own admittance. Of her own admittance. So it is a shame that it took Michael just pointed out, it's not a special case. This kind of stuff happens all the time, and the only reason why this story became a story is because they are celebrities. And I do think it maybe is true that the only reason why so many people supported Johnny Depp, and I'm going to be honest, and I hope this doesn't come across as misogynistic, but a lot of women, I think, supported Johnny Depp because he was, a famous actor, heartthrob for a long time. I do think that it has now genuinely become people recognizing the truth. And it's a shame that it took a celebrity to make this change, but I do think that this is going to reverberate, and I think that male victims in general are now going to be taken more seriously. And just in case there's any feminist who listens to this that tries to miscue what I'm saying, I think that male victims of domestic violence 100% deserve to go to prison. This is not us trying to secretly blame the
Male
victim.
victims of domestic violence.
Sorry, male perpetrators. Male perpetrators. Any man who commits domestic violence against women is a criminal and deserves to go to prison. 100%. So that's my position, and that's the position of virtually 99% of MRAs, I would have to say. So anyway, that's my intro. It's a little bit impassioned because the story was a little bit, of an impassionate story for me. And yeah, so the floor is open.
Okay, well, thank you, Blue. Anyway, the basically, if you haven't been aware, the media has been in an absolute meltdown over this, and I'm just post a little compilation. If you can see that, we've got a little compilation of the media's headlines and things like that. Uh, just supporting Amber Heard. This isn't all of them. This isn't even close to all of them. The Guardian has released one saying that the the Johnny Depp trial was like an orgy of misogyny and stuff like that, when in fact it was headed by a female judge, and she gave both sides a fair hearing. And Amber Heard lost on the basis that she admitted abusing Johnny Depp. Johnny Depp never admitted abusing Amber. There was no actual evidence of Johnny Depp abusing Amber, but there was loads of evidence and eyewitness testimony of Amber abusing Johnny Depp, and there was plenty of eyewitness testimony of Johnny Depp walking away from Amber Heard and not taking part in the fights that that she wanted him to get into, because she was trying to bait him into fights. Because if he actually punched her in the eye, then quite likely her plan was to sue him for domestic violence, get him put in prison, get all of his money as compensation, and walk off like a victim and a millionaire and surrounded by attention, which is what she really wants. Amber Heard does have BPD quite strongly. It's quite obvious when you compare the symptoms to how she acted in the case.
Oh, no, I would say I would say ASPD. I think she's a full blown sociopath.
I disagree. I
Yeah,
disagree if I
probably.
may. I disagree. I think Amber Heard is just a regular female with female privilege who has more money and fame to her name than other, I'd say, medium 7.5 pretty girls. I mean,
Well, I
I
have to
don't think
disagree.
she's a
I'm sorry,
typical
but I'm
woman.
gonna have to object to when you say a regular female, because I don't think the average woman would want to be violent or abusive. I mean, I'd like to believe that the majority of human beings, at least the majority of men and women, are mostly decent and non-violent. So I'd kind of have to
I
object to
bel
that.
yeah, okay. So I totally understand where you're coming from in the sense that we wouldn't want to believe that this is more than just a fringe case, but that's not the case. If
Well,
you
we
would
don't
have
think it's a
seen
fringe case, but we don't
The
think it's
Red
all
Pill
women either.
movie, if you watched the Red Pill movie where Cassie J was a feminist activist who made exclusive feminist movies for over 15 years, decided to interview the MRAs. Paul Elam is one of them. So she stopped calling herself a feminist because she saw the statistics and
Oh, we
numbers.
know. We've all
Or
seen.
wait,
We've
wait,
all
let
seen.
me finish,
We've all
please.
seen that
Let me
movie.
finish just
We've all
one
seen it.
more, two sentences, and I'm done, I swear. You should know there's over 220 um, shelters for battered women in the U.S. The number of battered men shelters in the U.S. is one,
Oh, we
just
know.
one.
And I'm not saying that it's. I'm not saying that domestic violence against men is rare. What I'm saying is I don't think that
It's not
the
acknowledged.
average
Men
woman
do
is
not.
abusive.
Yeah, but it's not acknowledged, and men do not complain because they feel they'll be ridiculed first and foremost by the police officer taking the statement.
I
Okay,
agree with that. Yeah, I agree with that.
and generally speaking, when you see a man who's 200 pounds versus a 130-pound woman, you generally assume that in a fight she wouldn't fight him because he'd take her. But that's not true because in society we say there's no reason to raise your hand in violence against a woman. And that encompasses a case where she raises a knife to you or throws some sort of, I don't know, appliance at
Well,
your head.
it's funny you say that because I made a video on YouTube 2 days ago where I said that I did punch a woman who raised a knife at me, and no, I don't regret it. And you know what? I'm sick of I'm supposed to be ashamed at that. I'm supposed to oh, you can't say that. But you know what? She assaulted me twice. She followed me home to where I lived. I asked her nicely to please leave, and she responded by trying to get out of the car, threatening to kill me. And I punched her to make her stop. And the next day, a female neighbor tried to shame me for it. Are you kidding? She's in
You're
a
lucky.
car. I'm
You're very lucky you're not in jail, sir. You're very
Oh no!
lucky.
I mean, I will. To LAPD's credit, I did call. Well, a neighbor called. I didn't call. Because I was covered in blood, and the LAPD came and took my statement, and I said, "Listen, I want to press charges," and they said, "Listen, this is assault with a deadly weapon. She's being charged with a felony by default. Mandatory." They never caught her, of course. So she's still out there, but at least they did take it somewhat seriously. Now, how seriously did they look for her? I don't know, but I wasn't in any trouble at all.
It's called an APB.
And I told them and I told them I put my hands on her. I said, yeah, I did, and I didn't get in any trouble for it, which I actually was kind of surprised. But then again, my neck was bleeding, and they saw that I was stabbed in the neck. So
You had that for you, going for you. You had physical evidence that, it's not like he said, she said, it's an actual stab wound or a slash wound. Yeah. The fact that you weren't carried away in handcuffs is special to me to hear that, because most of the times when two people are involved in physical violence and one side is a female, they assume, and I'm not saying it's correct, they assume that the aggressor was the male.
well,
Okay.
that's thanks to feminists came up with something. I'm sure you're familiar with the Duluth model,
Yes, the Duluth
which
wheels. It shows what
yeah,
abuse is.
which of course is something that feminists completely just made up. There's no real science behind it other than just feminist pseudoscience, but they present it as if it's scientific fact. And then I don't know how they somehow manipulated themselves into a position where police officers, police departments are actually trained with it.
Like CRT in schools for third graders. Well, yeah, well, this is getting in. I don't mind it, but this is getting really into the political agenda of. I mean, the left. I think the left is about getting more votes, so they pander to the most dangerous and deluded people because they are a majority. Okay, there's a large portion of them, and that's who they're pandering to.
If you
But
don't mind, if you don't mind, I know Carter has work soon, so I kind of maybe want to let him speak first because he may have to leave
sure.
early. Carter, is there anything that you want to say?
I just joined a couple of days ago. I didn't know the rules. That's why I texted that I wanted to say something first before I
It's all right,
Oh, that's
Michael.
fine. That's fine.
Yeah. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to chime in, Blue. I don't know if I have too much to say at the moment. I honestly haven't looked into the dynamics of the Amber Heard versus Johnny Depp case too much. But something that popped up that was a little interesting to me was that both Johnny Depp and Amber Heard were like really abusing drugs during this whole time. And when I heard that they were both taking Xanax, that really kind of illuminated a lot for me as someone who's abused Xanax myself and knows that that drug will just make you act pretty crazy and you'll have a lot of memory loss and things like that. So I think this scenario for both, they were probably both assaulting each other, if that's what we want to call it. And there was probably some really bizarre behavior going on between both of them. I'm not even sure if Johnny Depp and Amber Heard really remember a lot of these scenarios that they found themselves in. But there's this angle of defamation that Amber Heard took where there was, it's probably likely that there was a lot of fault on her end as well. We'll never know though. We'll never know what actually went on, how Johnny Depp's finger got severed, who hit who. But I think it's all really shady. Like, I think when you involve a lot of drugs, just gets...
Amber admitted to throwing the bottle that severed the finger. She admitted that.
Okay. Yeah, I guess I didn't really look into that too deep. So, yeah, I can definitely see that happening. I'm not trying to take Amber Heard's side here, but I found this whole cult of personality that came up around Johnny Depp to be really bizarre. I feel like it's the same thing that we criticize feminists for when it's on the other side of the equation, when they're like just irrationally protecting a female who, or a woman who is accusing someone of abuse. It was kind of, I felt like the mentality was just this total groupthink mentality. I'm not sure if they were really reviewing much of the evidence even. It just seemed like they had this hard on for Johnny Depp, or, had some type of irrational emotional connection to him. And he really had this cult of personality at the trial. At least that's what I saw. So I'm not sure that I'm still definitely on the fence. Obviously, I'm a pretty hardcore MRA, but something feels fishy and off about this for me. I will say though that defamation of someone's character is a very serious offense, and I think that was maybe trivialized to some degree. Or if you're going to go out and publish something in a magazine or a newspaper, like that can completely radically change somebody's life permanently. And I think that even if he did commit these offenses, like the way that the public right now handles people who abuse, or like treats people who abuse other people, it's pretty much like a lifelong, especially in this case, it'd be a lifelong type of scenario, deal that this individual would have to work with for the rest of their lives. So I'm kind of getting off topic here, but I do think they probably both abused each other. That's my take on the whole situation, as somebody who's kind of been in not an identical scenario, but been in a scenario where me and my partner were both using drugs. Like, shit just gets really weird and abusive very, very quickly, especially when you're doing drugs like Xanax. And so I just can only go on my own anecdotal experiences. But yeah, should Amber have Heard, gone and defamed his character, if that's a word, or gone this pursuit of defamation in magazine? I don't think so. I think they were both at fault there, and she should be held responsible for that. But holding Johnny Depp up as like this saintly figure is also kind of strange to me. So that's my take on the whole scenario. And I'm glad that male domestic victims are getting more recognition, but I think there's a lot of shady things in this specific example that we're just kind of glossing over right now. And there probably was abuse on both sides of the equation. So those are my
But I
thoughts.
kind of disagree, to be honest, because from what I've seen, everybody was against Johnny Depp. And then the evidence started coming out, the audio tapes and the pictures, and like Amber Heard was telling her side of the story, and Johnny Depp was telling his side of the story, and people started to realize that nothing about Amber Heard's side of the story actually added up, and everything about Johnny Depp's side of the story added up. And Johnny Depp had all these witnesses. He had all these, like people who he wasn't paying. He was like, he had, well, he's got Kate Moss now as well. Like, this is a new witness he has, and there are so many witnesses who say, like, in past people from past relationships who say that Johnny Depp is just like the nicest guy. We've got Amber Heard's own private investigator says he not only couldn't get any dirt on Johnny Depp, but he started the bat for Johnny Depp. And there's just so much stuff on his side, and there's just everything on her side is clearly lies, manipulation, and so on. And she started recording very, very early on in the relationship. In the longer cut, like the undercut versions of the video where he's smashing up cabinets, it's quite clear that she's baiting him. She's trying to get a rise off him. And it turns out that was, I think it was either after his mother died or after he was defrauded of millions by his accounting firm. So,
I mean, that's fair enough.
That
I don't really have too much logical.
She's ever managed to record him being, and she takes pictures of everything, and she has never been able to produce any kind of photo of these injuries, which should have destroyed her face, her body. Like, according to her own testimony, she should probably be dead. Like, she's never sought medical help. She has
And
never.
yeah, I was gonna say, unlike Johnny Depp, she never had to go to the hospital or receive medical treatment.
No. So Johnny Depp may have shot back verbally at some point, I don't know. But in all the audio tapes, even like the audio tapes that Amber Heard is using as evidence, he sounds like a guy who's being pushed to the edge by her, not anything else. It just doesn't sound like anything like that. And then we've got Johnny Depp's charity work is confirmed as genuine, whereas Amber Heard's charity work is all words. She'll say she's going to do something, and then she'll get somebody else to pay some of the money towards it, and then she'll just sort of keep as much of the money as possible. So she's basically committing fraud. It's, I mean, this is why she now owes like about twice as much money as she can actually pay, if not 3 or 4 times.
I actually have a little bit of insider knowledge. When I lived in Los Angeles, I worked in the film industry. I was friends with a woman who, she would be considered on the left. She would be considered a progressive, and she would probably be considered a feminist and a Democrat. But she was a decent person, She was one of those feminists who, you could have a reasonable conversation with. And we were talking about a script I was writing, and hypothetical, casting. And when I mentioned Amber Heard, she says, no, Amber Heard's crazy. Trust me, stay away. So for what it's worth.
No, we all heard the recordings. That seems to be in par with reality.
Yeah, I like her take. I mean, I have watched Amber Heard on the stand, and I'm not the best with faces, but even I can tell that she's just stone cold lying, and she's just a manipulator. Like,
yeah, she's been prepped
she
very
makes the
well.
right noises, but she doesn't make any of the right facial expressions. She doesn't like she cries, but there's no tears or snot or anything coming out. Her eyes don't get red. Like she isn't actually
I mean,
crying.
it's challenging to invoke the depth of that emotion in a court case. I'm not trying to take Amber's side here, but that is a challenging thing to do. It is to conjure up those emotions as you're delivering your statements, is to feel the full brunt and intensity of those emotions, like bring them back into the forefront as you're trying to deliver like this powerful emotional testimony. It is difficult to do.
But it should be easier for an actress, wouldn't it be? Well, a good one in any case. I don't think you can
I
see
guess. I
the
mean,
expression on her face because she's been Botoxed so much.
Did anybody see Aquaman?
I did.
yeah.
She was so bad. I mean, the movie was bad, but she was so bad.
All her contribution was looking pretty in red hair. I didn't see much beyond that. Not that Jason Momoa is a Shakespearean actor, but still. Yeah.
I mean, I went with my sister. We were laughing because I mean, the script was like something a 12-year-old would write. I couldn't believe how bad it was.
Yeah, like canine fecal matter, as I would say, quote unquote. That's a fancy word for dog shit, but I thought some people understood.
And yet it makes $1 billion.
I told you, when you pander to a bunch of idiots, which are the majority, let's say you consider the bell curve of intelligence. Take the average IQ of an American and then figure out where most people are. You're not going to be surprised that they can be persuaded using emotional statements into thinking otherwise. I mean, look at the entire woke movement. It started in a good place where you need to recognize past mistakes and what do you call them? I forgot the word, but injustices. And it completely overtaken that movement to the point where now we're doing reverse racism against white people. Blindly so. Exactly what the movement was supposed to be against now has become racist, just the other way around and to the extreme. And it became against whites and then became against straight whites, then straight white males. It's getting it's not stopping. It's a snowball thing, in my opinion.
And even black men, even black men and non-white men, feminists are not their friends either. Because when feminists support these gender domestic violence laws, or when feminists try and downplay circumcision, or try and downplay prostate cancer, or try and downplay the boys' education gap, they're affecting men of all races.
True. Feminists were never about equality. They never wanted equality, not in the past 20, 30 years. Equality's been reached a long time ago. I mean, a woman in 2022 can do whatever she likes, and she does. If she chooses to be low earning, it's because she didn't go to the STEM subjects like sciences, and engineering and pursue a high powered career. Some of them do. I mean, the CEO of Xerox makes 210 million per year. But let me tell you, she's one of the Jeff Bezos type people. Workaholic, 24 hours a day, I'll sleep over the weekend type of thing. The thing is, feminism today is unnecessary, completely unnecessary. They have no reason to exist. And the only reason they do is because they gather those women, girls, whatever you want to say, that have a bone to pick, an axe to grind against men in general for whatever reason. Like men don't commit to me, or men are not attracted to me, and they found, like, I don't know, a purpose together to basically take away from men as much as they could. That's why they say believe all women and kill all men, or all men are trash, which is much more out there than you would think. It's on a lot of videos on TikTok. It's a lot of videos on YouTube. It's
Oh
social
no,
media.
I see it everywhere. I see
Yeah.
it, and something I've been saying lately is we need to start. Like I view this as kind of like a post-Stalingrad moment for the MRM. This is where we should start going on the counterattack. This is where we should start taking the offensive, and this is where we should start pushing back. We should confront feminists who say things like that. Or if you hear women say something like that at work, out loud in front of the entire office, say, "Hey, what do you mean by that?" Force the issue.
Yeah, but you need to change the branding of how men react to this, because it's common belief, subconsciously and consciously and socially, that men can be predators and wife beaters and sexual harassment type people, rapists. I mean, even pedophiles are, when you say pedophile, you always view like this creepy man, and there are female pedophiles as well. And everything is male. It's like Karen Strawn said in the Red Pill movie. We don't hate men, we just named everything bad after them. Okay, and in that interview, she really says how society needs to slowly be given information and suggested this point of view that maybe there's something wrong about how we categorize males and men in general. That no, you don't need to cross the street from a guy no more than you need to cross the street from a girl walking that you don't know. Equal chance of assault and mugging and whatever. Okay, as I said before about Amber Heard and Johnny Depp, you don't need to be a 300-pound girl with extreme muscle growth all over yourself to be able to stab someone, throw something at someone's head. And I don't know if you know the case. It's old. Lorna Bobbitt from the 1990s just decided, he woke up in the middle of the night, took a pair of scissors and sliced off her husband's penis. Just cut it off because she thought he was cheating. She didn't have any proof. She didn't have any. It wasn't true, actually, but he was ignoring her, as she said, and she thought he was cheating. Woke up in the middle of the night. She cut his penis off.
They'll
Trying to
make
keep
paintings of that.
language. So yeah, you think Amber Heard is bad? Lorna Bobbitt isn't in prison. A 38-year-old woman 3 years ago who statutory raped one of her 14-year-old students got pregnant by him. Well, against his wishes, of course, because he's a minor. And then subsequently, not only did she not go to jail, she also sued him for child support and won. So let that sink in. Society is around this whole thing called gynocentrism, and that's what the famous MRA Paul Elam talks about in his channel and in many social media platforms he's on. That was the reason why Cassie J, the director, interviewed him first. And the red pill movie is balanced because you can find extreme feminists, the extremes in the middles of everything, and it leaves you with one opinion. If you were born male, you're screwed.
Yeah, I just have like two things I'd like to contradict from the early points of that. One thing is that feminism was never about equality, and we've never actually needed feminism. What we actually needed was egalitarianism.
True.
And you kind of made it seem like equality is when women have all the privileges. But
That's exactly what I'm not
actually
saying. That's what they say. That's what they're after today. They're after privileges and male bashing. They want to get as much as
They've
they
always been
can
after that.
without contributing anything. That's how it works.
Mm.
It's
But
not
I'm just
called
saying they've always been after that.
egalitarianism, it's called feminism. It's about the females. It's not called
Yeah.
equalitarianism. Yet they still spew the sentence like, we're worried about both men and women. We care about men and women's issues. There's nothing more dirty of a lie than that.
Yeah, I think he's misunderstood what I'm saying slightly, but yeah, I mean, I was just going at something you said very earlier and just implied that they, that we, like women, attained equality, when in fact what they attained was like a special position in society. They unbalanced the equation that was there before. I mean, the equation there before was never fair, but they imbalanced it much more in favor of the female. But then they also created a bunch of problems for women as well, like making it so that all women basically have to work like men and act like men and stuff like that, and attacking women who don't do that. And so it's not good for men, it's not good for women, it's not good for anybody, really. It's not fit for purpose, which is why I say we need egalitarianism. But I mean, I just wanted to go back into what the media is doing around the Johnny Depp trial, because it's a classic example of how the media gaslights people. Take, for example, this. Yeah, sorry, my internet screwed up there a second. I tried to post it and talk at the same time. But jury finds both Amber Heard and Johnny Depp were defamed after weeks-long trial. Technically the truth, but what they found was that Johnny Depp was not a wife beater, and Amber Heard was abusive and malicious, and maliciously posted this statement in the media. But they also found that Johnny Depp's lawyer spread a rumor about her faking the scene of a crime, which, to be honest, from the other things I've heard about Amber Heard, I can absolutely 100% like believe that she'd do something like that, because there's evidence she faked other stuff like the photos. So it's pretty, like, she sent the footage to TMZ and stuff like that to try and defame him. So I mean, I don't know why the jury. I mean, I think the jury found that on a technicality pretty much, because it technically was defaming, because they don't actually have any evidence that directly ties Amber Heard to that. If Amber Heard's text messages had come out, I think we'd probably have pretty damning proof of it. But unfortunately, her text messages have not come out. So basically, this is one of the tactics they take. The other major tactic they have is saying that Amber is an imperfect victim, meaning that she hit him back, basically, and saying that trying to frame her violence as self-defensive, or just taking her side completely and saying that the jury failed her, that it was a bad misogynistic jury, and the whole trial needs to be thrown out and redone. But the thing is, if you take the same evidence and you play it in front of 1,000 different juries who are all fair-minded people with enough intelligence to see what's in front of their faces, they're all going to side with Johnny Depp. I mean, there might be some variation on whether or not they think that particular thing that I mentioned before was defamatory against Amber, but they're never going to side on Amber's side and say that no, Johnny Depp was abusive, because there's literally no evidence of it. And all the evidence is that she was faking things, and she's hiring expert witnesses, like the most dodgy expert witnesses you could possibly find, to try and say she's innocent. Like she's getting her therapists to say that as sort of an expert witness to say that Johnny Depp beat her, when all that really is her repeating what Amber told her. And like when you actually put her in front of a real psychologist, she fakes her. Mind your mics, by the way. Mute your mics when not talking, if you can. She fakes. I know I'm guilty of not doing it as well, but she fakes. She fakes her PTSD on her PTSD test, and all sorts of things like that. So she can't get through anything without lying.
Well, I believe that if it was PTSD, I believe she should have, after getting beat up once with the slightest scratch on her face, should have gone to the police. I don't care what she was planning, but someone who sits on the evidence and just waits for an opportune time to strike with it for maximum financial gain, that's suspect. I don't think she had a real case to begin with. All she had on her is the social perception of I'm a small girl and I never would have raised my hand against this man who's my husband. I mean, where in that logic lies truth that she was a one-sided victim? And by the way, when abuse takes this elongated path through time, it's obvious that there's been a back and forth. I'm not talking about a physical one, but you cannot stay completely zen for years when someone's been psychotic, borderline psychotic next to you. In one of the recordings, she sounds insane, like detached from reality. And all he says was, I just want to go. Why can't I go? And she's like making no saying points and giving no real reason. Just don't go, please don't go, begging. And you can see that same thing in her text messages. Now, I didn't follow the trial as much. I just watched the summation and the verdict itself. So, I mean, if a guy breaks his own property or something that he's basically paying for, I don't think that she's the victim of it. I think that she started this whole mess just to get him unnerved and to do something. I think she had a plan all along. A poor man's gold digger in reverse. She doesn't want to wait until the divorce is final to take half his money. She wanted to get her punches in and she wanted to make it public. Honestly, she just should have filed for
There
divorce.
is evidence that she was arrested before for domestic abuse, so it's very, very obvious who was the actual abuser here and who started it all. And
I would imagine so. Yeah, I would imagine that Johnny Depp would have been up on trial or had some sort of history in violence that's been documented even by rumors. Okay, if they've been going on for years and years and years from different sources, even rumors who are unsubstantiated would have been something to point out. But there's no violent record of him. I don't know about you guys, but if I was on the stand and some idiot is reading texts I gave him and says, "Did I read that right?" It just sounds like those things kids say in the back of the car. Are we there yet? It's at the point, and I would have snapped. I mean, if it's on what you present to the judge on the paper, the judge recognizes it as evidence. You don't need to ask me if that's right. Am I right? I mean, it was unnecessary. I think he was just trying to get a rise out of him.
yeah, I think they were doing that constantly. Like, I mean, there's quite a bit of evidence that she was actually trying to abuse him in the courtroom. So, it's if you actually watch the footage, there's all sorts of stuff. Like she dresses like him in the court. Like he'll come in with a silver bee pin on his suit, and she'll come in the next day in a suit with a bee pin on it and stuff like that. And it's
No,
kind of crazy.
yes, it is. I'm saying she's not all there, but mostly what's driven this thing and her behavior was, I'm a pretty girl. I'm also famous. I'm also married to this famous rich guy. I can get away with most things. And then just like a child, she was trying to stretch the outline, the border of what's right and wrong and what you can get away with. Just like a teasing child, but she's bitten off more than she could chew. And since obviously, like most of her status was not talked about accountability and logic, she got what she deserved. I mean, if she actually assaulted him and cut a piece off of his body, no matter how small, she should serve jail time, but she's not going to because she's a pretty celebrity girl. That's my take. I mean, his lawyer also, I would have risen up in court and say, objection, Your Honor, irrelevant, leading the witness. I mean, there's a lot of wrongdoing, but I don't know. Part of me thinks that somewhere it was just an act, just something that so the media could be interesting once in a while and not just failing at its job. Who knows? But I did find out footage of the security cam where she changed the lock so Johnny Depp can come back to the house, but she had no problem bringing up a James Franco. You can clearly see her in her nightgown going into the lobby and bringing him in. That's not something an innocent, good person does.
And Elon Musk too. People think that Elon's actually funding her case, but actually, I think it's insurance.
I don't think he would have touched it. No.
Well,
he's got bigger fish to fry.
But there's pictures floating around with Elon walking around with her, and it looks an awful lot like he's been punched in the face.
Never seen it, never heard of it, so I don't have a comment on that.
Well, one thing that I wanted to bring up, which I think we kind of touched on, was number one, like there's kind of a two-tier justice system in this country and in many countries, and it doesn't seem to be really related to race. And it's more related to the media and the mainstream collective would have us believe, but it's more related to gender, where the verdicts and the juries and the judges seem to be very sympathetic when the perpetrator is a woman or the victim is a woman comparatively to men. That's something that I think probably a lot of us identified when we were pretty young that are here today. But that's always been a very significant concern for me. And what are the reasons for that? I'll be honest with you, like it's something that I have to be consciously aware of when I'm evaluating these cases, because I have almost like an ingrained organic biological, not urge, but tendency. Yeah. Thank you for absolving women of a lot of offenses and minimizing it and trivializing it. And I don't have that same tendency towards men. But at the same time, I also think a lot of our, at least in the United States, a lot of the punishments for offenses are very severe. And I think a reason a lot of time we have trouble convicting women the same way we do men is because we're like sympathetic towards them about the sentences. Like some of the 15, 20 years, it's like, holy shit, man, this is some serious stuff. Why are we, or just the prison sentences and the severity of the punishment. Oh, what'd you say?
Interject really fast. There's actually a study. I'm going to post it right now to the text chat. It's from the University of Michigan Law School, which shows that gender is the single biggest factor in sentencing. And men are sentenced to an average of 70% longer jail sentences for the same crime when all mitigating and aggregating factors are controlled for. So the gender gap in sentencing is larger than the racial gap, and that's been proven. And I'm pretty sure that I don't think too many people could say the Michigan Law School is a bad source of information.
I mean, yeah. I don't even know if on this one studies and metrics like that are definitely going to be advantageous, but it's so fucking obvious to us here. And honestly, I think it's obvious to the feminists as well. I mean, there's so much anecdotal evidence around that's probably in our own lives. We know people, we've seen how these trials have played out and things like that in divorce courts and all these other trials. It's so obvious that there's this radical two-tier justice system. I think in the UK, it is like codified into law somehow. Like in the UK, it's one of the most extreme places, I think, in the world for this two-tier justice system on gender, where they're legitimately creating a second legal system and framework for women. And they're trying to this is only based on articles that I've read. They're trying to really keep women out of jail completely. Like their legislation is emerging to keep women out of jail for everything except the most violent, radical of offenses. And that same framework is not being applied to men, and there's no discussion around it emerging or anything like that. And I think a huge part of the issue is the men themselves. Like we don't have that sympathy and understanding and empathy towards other men. And why is that? I've never felt that. I've felt bits and pieces of that maybe, but I've always found it to be bizarre that men are so sympathetic towards women, and then it's so overtly and flagrantly don't apply that same way of thinking to men. How are we not aware of it on a larger collective scale at this point? That this two-tier, it's not just the justice system. It's really every interaction in our life, like hitting women versus hitting men. I mean, there's a million different things that I could say here, but mutual combat between men is something that is acceptable, and people don't see any issue with a lot of times with that, but a man and a woman fighting is completely unacceptable for the man to be engaging in that. And I really think physical violence in general is oftentimes just degenerate behavior. But when a man and a woman are involved, it's a completely different scenario than a man and a man. And even if the man is much smaller, that's getting beat up on and things like that, it doesn't invoke the same type of emotional reaction where men, and women have an extraordinarily amount of bias towards absolving, women of really any type of negative influence or negative
accountability.
Yeah, in this scenario.
Well, a part of that has to do with, I mean, the feeling you're describing we call gynocentrism, which is the natural feeling to be more sympathetic towards women. I think another part of it too, though, has to do with the fact that the males have been disposable for the longest time. We've only sent males to war for centuries, thousands of years, however long the human race has been here. You know, we've only sent males to do a lot of our fighting. And so there's been this constant sense of disposability. And you see that with the court systems, you see that with the crime rate, you know, when you hear on the news when people are complaining about the crime rate, the cases they usually reference involve women or children. Children are usually female children, but when you hear anything that involves a boy or men, which makes the majority of crime, men attacking other men, they don't really talk about it as much because from their point of view, it's just an issue of two disposable people fighting amongst each other, and they're going to be disposed later, sooner or later, which is horrible to say, but seems to be the absolute truth. And so, because we've for so long kept this idea that they're I said race, the disposable gender, that people don't have that kind of sympathy. And then when it comes to a two-tiered system, you see that disposability is still affecting their mind because it's this idea, for some reason, after many years of us practicing male disposability, that we need to sustain women, even if that means giving them lesser punishments for the same crimes, giving them unbelievable advantages, and then, you know, obviously creating systems for them. In the US, the two-tier system goes by the names of Title IX and VAWA, laws that are specifically made to take care of any issues that immediately involve women at different
Right.
levels.
Yeah, well, thanks
And
for adding that context.
Oh, shit! They're not even.
Well, it's nothing
They don't even
new.
try and hide it.
It's nothing new. Gynocentrism has been around for thousands of years, but back then it was very important to conserve your tribe's ability to procreate. Okay, because it's like the thing the feminists say: 100% of women get to procreate, only 30% of males get to procreate. Because it's harder for it's easier for a female to get intercourse and to become pregnant if she so wishes. But men have to prove the high value and providing, of course, in order to get just access to procreation. So back in the day, hundreds and thousands of years ago, when there was a war, men went off to fight because they knew not 100% of them are going to be fathers and be able to have children. But they knew if the women are taken prisoner or they lose the war, then that's a total gain for the next for the rival tribe. But that remains that's where it comes from. It's a very old idea that was valid back then. Today, women aren't being dragged off and used as incubators for Mongolian warlords or what have you. So today, male disposability is about supply and demand. And there's a skewed view in how we teach women and girls to view boys. They are dispensable. Okay? If they are not very good looking, buy and pay for things and drive you around, you could do better. And that's putting it mildly. That's where the 80-20 rule came from, that 80% of women are interested in the top 20% of men. And you can see that pretty much prevalent in social media and dating apps and such. Yeah, I mean,
That's where it's the most overt for sure.
Yeah, she can swipe
What
through
I've noticed.
10,000 people. I mean, the platforms for dating apps is basically like a bar. Girls get in free, okay? Guys have to pay. I don't think girls need super boosts or a gold membership of any kind. No, they just swipe 100 times a day and basically, no, he's not tall enough. Oh, I don't like his hair or anything. They can afford to do that while in their 20s. Okay, it's when they reach their 30s, that's a different story. But while they're still young, they can do that, and that's why no single male has no value for them unless he's exceptional in some way. Okay, and that's the lowest common denominator, biologically speaking, and that's what we call hypergamy. Women and girls are looking for someone who with a higher value than themselves, okay, like social climbers, and they will not settle for someone who's God
Definitely
forbid.
a significant amount. And it seems like that tendency is a lot more likely when you're meeting these women on dating apps. You know, the women you're meeting in a library, if those even exist anymore, is usually has a little, I've found different character, different values. I've had very bad experiences on dating apps myself with exactly the women that you're describing here, or you're painting a picture of. But when I've met women and go ahead.
View human beings as products. Like
human beings were always products, by the way. Human beings were always. You sell yourself when you go to a job interview. You sell yourself to socially to people to bond with. This has always been a marketing of sorts. It's like the saying the feminists say, you are objectifying women. First and foremost, aren't women objectifying men?
All the time.
You never see a male model who's a plus size man is being praised as he's gorgeous and brave to be himself. No, that's not happening ever. Did you ever wonder why? Double standards. Okay? That's one example. This is just one example. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
I think one particularly cruel thing that we see on social media that might have always been around, but it certainly seems to be more prevalent, is when women comment on men's heights. I think that is having like potentially a really significant psychological impact on certain men. Definitely like in private conversations that I've had, some men have really shared like a lot about that specific thing. I'm not saying, all women are doing this by any means, but some of the comments that I see on social media are like particularly cruel, and it's coming from men too. Like, men will degrade other men for their height, and they think it's like this subtle little jab and it's trivial and things like that, but it's not almost every time. And the men that are getting the brunt of this, they have to kind of just pretend like it's not impacting them. As for some, they can just brush off these things very easily. It's not impacting their ego or their confidence at all. But for the others, they have to like pretend that it's not doing anything when really it is. And then when the women got involved, when it's like, or, I don't really think, this is happening much among gay men, but when it's, the gender that you're attracted to that's saying these types of things on social media, and it's getting hundreds of thousands of likes, these comments are getting hundreds of thousands of likes, I really do think there's like a staggering psychological impact there on the men that are struggling with their height and the impact of their height on their lives and things like that, especially in the dating market. But it extends beyond that, just into how you're treated by the rest of the world, and like in job, in your professional environment and in your personal environment, or social environment. And then also, like when that case came up around Jada Smith or Will Smith slapping Chris Rock, and a lot of people were saying it was justified because alopecia for women is this very severe thing, which I think it is. I mean, it depends.
I think alopecia affects people equally. There are a lot of bald men out there. and your receding hairline, I'm not attacking you, but I don't think that's a female issue that females should be treated differently.
That's what I'm saying.
You made a
I'm
joke.
saying,
Will
yeah,
Smith
we
laughed
all
at.
we all are impacted by that. Like men, it's just commonly considered men who are balding or their hairline is receding. Like this is a easy thing for them to get over, a trivial thing for them to get over. It's not impacting their life. But there, you go and search, that's how we perceive it publicly. But you go and dive deeper into this. There are hundreds of thousands of men in forums that a whole lot, it seems like their lives are devastated over this. There are men committing suicide over losing their hair. And the reality is it does change your appearance significantly for men or women, and that's going to have ramifications in your actual life, in the way people treat you in relationships, but also just socially and professionally and things like that. And it's thought of like there's no consideration for how this impacts men, and the absolute highest level of consideration for how this impacts women.
A woman, not women in general. I mean, all black comedians say the word weave over and over again because sisters have a lot of weaves in their hair. But what happened here is a cuckold who's lost all self-esteem, and he knows he can't do anything. He's completely at her mercy, okay, legally and financially, if she chooses to divorce him. And I think personally he should have divorced her and gave her half and moved on. But he's what he did was wrong. I mean, it's a joke. It's just a joke. Okay. Obviously, Chris Rock did not. Even when Will Smith was walking up to him, he didn't actually expect to be slapped in the face because it wasn't a proportional response to a guy making a joke. A lot of celebrities commented on this, and I think he's a broken man. Simply, I don't think he's mentally ill. I don't think he has severe depression, but I think watching the love of your life getting fucked by every 21-year-old who has a celebrity status, and she's sitting at the red round table, whatever it is, and saying, it was an entanglement. They dress up in a nice word, just right out of 50 Shades of Grey, an entanglement. Instead of saying to the world, yes, I cheat on my husband. Yes, I screw younger men. I liked it and I'm going to do it again. And she says, I don't feel any regrets about it. I don't think I did something wrong, which was very telling. And I thought that took balls because she knows nothing bad is going to happen to her because of saying that. And he sits across from her where most men should have gotten up and said, you know what? No. Taken off the microphone, the booster, put it down, and walked away. That was a perfectly reasonable response.
Yeah.
But because he couldn't, he had to tip her hand.
I feel you. I think that whole scenario is interesting for MRAs because it's like, what side do we take here on that issue? From my perspective and my optics, it's pretty clear that this was like an Al Capone type moment for Will Smith. The fact that he could remain and sit there in the audience and face absolutely no repercussions at the immediate time for that is unreal to me. And I think it sets a really bad precedent and just standard for society that you can just walk up to another man and fuck. It wasn't like a trivial slap either. I think, people were trying to say that when I really went back and like took some time to look at that video, that guy, he straight up decked Chris Rock in the face. There's some power behind that slap. That is not the social conditions that I want for men or women or society in general, there is no repercussions for going and slapping somebody in the face. Like legally, obviously there's social repercussions for Will Smith, but there was a lot of women out there like it's justifiable because Will Smith was defending his wife's honor. So I really think this is like a negative thing for men, that it's okay for men to hit other men as long as when it's protecting your wife's honor or a woman's honor. That was enraging me over this, that I was seeing on social media, even for people that I know are like sometimes sympathetic to men's issues, at least in my social network and online and personal interactions. Like there was this overwhelming consensus that, well, it's, he needed to defend his wife's honor, and so that can really rile a man up. And, in this instance, it was maybe more justifiable than if that wasn't the case. And I just did not understand that line of thinking or way of thinking.
Because it's illogical and disproportional. Illogical and disproportional. We're saying, well, if he had a man partner, if he was gay, no one would have said, yeah, that's okay. Just go slap the other guy for calling him bald. He didn't even actually tell her anything. He said G.I. Jane.
It was a G.I. Jane.
And in G.I. Jane, she chose to cut off her hair, just like Jada Pinkett Smith did. But, she made a video about it. My alopecia is coming for my hair, so I'm going to cut it myself. I mean, a woman of your resources can get herself a very realistic wigs, and no one would be the wiser if you wanted to. She chose to make it a public statement for, hey, look at me. And she rolled her eyes. And after laughing at the joke where every human being that was normal in that audience did, she gave him a side look, and he took it as a signal to go unleash your wrath. Doesn't matter if your wrath comes from me fucking other dudes. But yeah, I see him. I don't see him as a victim. I just see him as a sufferer. He shouldn't have done it. Yeah.
He's obviously a person, I think, as everyone's saying, who suffered a lot in his relationship. I think also there may possibly be an issue of just this has been going on so long that he doesn't really know how to control his emotions. But, there's a big issue, possibly. But that's just my opinion. I do believe Jada is guilty on a lot of this. I think it's a hard situation because he has been suffering so much, but he still chose to take action. On the other hand, there's obviously blame on her side, which is where I can't stand people are saying this is fully on him. And this goes in Amber Heard too. There's physical abuse, there's mental abuse, there's verbal abuse, and then there's manipulative abuse, which is what Amber and Jada sort of both do, which is a mix between verbal and mental. They're purposely trying to get their partners riled up or to do something for them, and they're just purposely sort of messing with their head. And people do not recognize this. And because they don't recognize this, they don't do anything about it. They try to play it off and be like, well, nothing physical happened, so they're completely innocent. It's on the guy's fault, and it really isn't. And so as a society, we really need to start noticing manipulative abuse. But guys, it's getting a little late. I hate to cut this off, but we're going to go into free time. So thank you, everyone, for coming to the stream this week. We know it's a little bit different timing. We're now at Saturday, 3 p.m. UK time, which is 9 a.m. Central or 10 a.m. Eastern. We always love having you guys here. We love hearing what you have to say. We hope you all come again next week, and we will see you then.
Awesome.